The first question is in relation to the TUSLA rule about the 20 days, the 20-day limit. And Minister, I just want to ask if you will consider even a temporary exemption due to the public health emergency that includes illness and or suspected contact with a person with COVID-19, which would require a period of self-isolation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Deputy.
Actually, as school has been reopening, TUSLA's Education and Support Service TESS has been engaging with families to provide advice, support and encouragement for students as they return to school, recognising that it's a significantly different environment for many children and young people. Under the Education and Welfare Act 2000, schools are obliged to maintain a record of students' attendance and are required to refer to TESS where a student misses more than 20 days at school, as you referred to there. In order to ensure that no student is missed, TESS is asking all schools to complete a once-off COVID return to be completed by the end of September. This return will identify any students who have not returned to school despite the intervention of school personnel and TESS staff. TESS has advised my department that schools will continue to be required to submit biannual student absence reports during the 2020-21 academic year, and schools will record all absences as normal, with the only exception being in the case of students who are medically certified at being at very high risk of COVID-19 and hence cannot attend school. As per the guidance by the Department of Education, students deemed very high risk will be supported by their schools to continue their education at home, and if any student is engaging with learning at home, they will be marked presence. Where students are absent for legitimate COVID-19 related reasons, TESS will work with schools, students and their parents to support them as required as school returns, and TESS has issued a letter to all principals and the video as well explaining how that process will operate. In all other circumstances where students' absence is explained, for example illness or quarantining due to COVID-19, the school will be informed by the parent and guardian, and the school will note such absence as explained when completing the biannual report to TUSLA. And look, TUSLA and TESS is very mindful of the need for a supportive approach to all children and families as schools reopen, and they're going to adopt a fair and balanced approach in its assessment of absence, ensuring close collaboration with all schools.
Minister, and thanks, Cian Corla. I welcome that because a lot of parents have contacted me about this and about their concerns that obviously everybody wants to do the right thing, and it's a nervous time and an anxious time. It's a good time as well to see the schools reopening and to see children return as parents. I certainly welcome that. But I suppose there is concerns there that if you're trying to do the right thing and keep kids home, not to be introducing even more bugs, even if it's something mild or something that you normally would, I suppose, maybe send children to school with, and people were afraid that they might be penalised. And I suppose, there is that fear that you're going to get a letter, and the whole process, the whole idea, I suppose, that TUSLA would be contacted in relation to your children is a kind of a scary prospect. So basically, can I just confirm then, Minister, that if it's a case that children are out due to COVID or due to quarantine or due to taking precautions, there's a section, I suppose, for that to be explained, and that it won't be an issue for parents? Thanks.
Thanks, Deputy. Yeah, I'm happy to confirm that, and we double check that with TUSLA and TESS today in advance of addressing your question. Where an absence is explained due to a COVID-related reason, that won't count towards the 20 days. And look, you're right. I understand parents are nervous. It is such a different environment, but I think when you look at the way in which the Education and Welfare Service works over the years, it is an approach that tries and brings parents and tries to get students into class if at all possible. And you know yourself the number of actual school attendance notices that is issued every year is small compared to the overall number of engagements that TESS has, and even more so the number of actual prosecutions that are brought forward is even smaller scale. I think that's indicative of that harmonious approach that TESS operates. But yes, I can confirm that for you.
Just really briefly, because I think the question in fairness has been answered, but just to say, I suppose, I do understand why that rule is there, and I would generally support it because there's a lot of children maybe who have the potential to fall through the cracks, so I understand that that's obviously there to identify that. But I suppose given that we're in such strange and unusual times, it is good to see, I often find myself in here talking about common sense, and it's good to see in this instance that common sense is going to be applied. So thanks very much, Minister.
It's a common sense approach, but I suppose we're doing that September audit of who's attending, because certainly some research my department has undertaken over the last number of months has shown that there is a real potential for impact of the 3.5 months out of school on children generally, but particularly on children with special educational needs and children from disadvantaged backgrounds. And I think that's why it's just so important, as we have this transition back to school, that children who maybe are most vulnerable, that Tess is just keeping a particular eye out on them, and rather than waiting for the biannual report audits to come in, that we do this September audit just to flag up if there are certain groups of children who are possibly falling through the cracks, and to allow the maybe homeschool liaison officers or school completion programmes to kick in there to bring them back into the school.